This is the concierge, sir.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Concierge Confidential. I'm your host, Brian Ortega. Sorry, guys, we are a day late on our usual episodes, but honestly, my parents were in town, and then we had to, give it a day to sort of, get them, on the way home, and then had to record the episode, obviously, from reacting to this last weekend's festivities, and it was awesome. Honestly, it's going to probably take 2 episodes for me to kind of go over what we did this entire weekend. For those of you just tuning in, this is post-Super Bowl weekend. Super Bowl was not in Las Vegas. It was in San Francisco, but Super Bowl is always a big event for me and my family. They're always in town for that, and we usually go and do something cool. So in this episode, I'm mostly going to be reviewing our dinner at Oscar Steakhouse and kind of reevaluate my thinking on Oscar Steakhouse. This is my first time, so I can't really reevaluate, but I had preconceived notions of what I thought that steakhouse was going to be like, and honestly, it surprised me. So I'm really excited to talk about that. We'll also see if, we're going to say that for another episode where I talk about going to the Sphere and seeing the Backstreet Boys because it was awesome. So we're going to be reviewing Oscar Steakhouse and a couple of things from the Super Bowl week coming up next on Concierge Confidential. Okay, hello everybody. So let's get into the episode. So it was my mom's birthday on the 31st, so happy birthday to my mom. It's always funny because she's always having to compete with the Super Bowl, which is always kind of a funny thing. It used to sometimes land on the Super Bowl, but a couple years ago, like 20 years ago, they changed it so it doesn't have to compete as much anymore. But we decided that my dad always wants to try these old school places, and since Golden Steer was out of the question, I decided that we should try the Oscar Steakhouse at the Plaza Hotel. And I was down with it. I was like, okay, let's try it. Let's go downtown. We're gonna have all these things planned. And so first off, when you park, you typically have to park. The best parking, honestly, you could park at Plaza. I would just park at Garage Mahal, which is at Circa, and then from there, you can walk over to the Plaza. It's literally less than 5 minutes. So we do that. We ended up gambling at Circa a little bit, and then we cross the street over to the Plaza Hotel. When you go in, it's you go into the main entrance. You're gonna make a left, basically around the donut shop, and then there's an escalator that takes you up. Lots of cool memorabilia from Oscar Goodman and his career as an attorney for many prominent members of the mafia. And then he was also mayor of Las Vegas, of course. His wife became mayor after that. But he's kind of, was known as the happiest mayor in the world, essentially. And he very much was part of a time when the city very much had this funny identity of what it was. It was very kitschy. Vegas was a very kitsch place in the 90s, and then kind of going into the 2000s, it really changed to sort of that place you would go to experience all that sin. And then you have Vegas, what it is now. But when you go in, it's really cool. There's a really cool history about the Plaza, the steakhouse over at the Plaza, and it's this beautiful building, or beautiful sort of rotunda shape that has all this glass that used to have a beautiful view of Fremont Street, which it still does have a very nice view, but they put up the zip line, which you can no longer see straight down Fremont, but you still get a pretty good view of it. And they have all these different booths. They have also extended it, so they've actually expanded. They even have an outdoor patio area, and then really long bar, really big bar area that I did not know was that large. So nice bar, I gotta say. I have never been in there. I worked very close to the Plaza for 5 years, and then lived a long time in Vegas before that. Never walked into Oscars, and I have to say, very impressed with, it's old-timey because it's supposed to be sort of, this very vintage style steakhouse. And we walk in, and I go to the front. Sorry, guys, I was thinking about what happened before that. We ended up going, and we were going to go to this cool bar on Main Street, and then it was also First Friday, which was that was not happening. So we kind of aborted that idea. and then went straight to the hotel. So we get to Oscars, and then I walk over to the front desk or the hostess stand and checked in, all that stuff. It should be noted that on the reservation, I did put that it was my mom's birthday, so I don't know how much this had to do with it. But anyways, so we said that it's our birthday. This was a 6:15 reservation. So for those of you looking to get better seating options, and especially where it's like limited, where there's only a view or things of that nature, book earlier in the day, and they're usually much more capable of accommodating you for those early times. So we get there, my mom or dad goes to the bathroom, and then we're kind of just waiting for things to happen. And then the hostess, takes us, they get the menu, and there's an area off to the side that I'm like, I don't want to sit there. They're not going to put you on the patio typically unless you request the patio. So I was like, please don't keep walking that direction to the far end where it was not the main circular part. And then she took us to the center part, which the center part is the original part of the restaurant. It's rotund. It's in the round essentially, and it has all this glass, and you're able to look out. And it has these really old school booths, and I'm like, sweet, I'm really excited to sit in one of these seats. So I'm like, okay, good start. And as we keep kind of rotating around the restaurant floor, I was like, oh my goodness, we're going closer and closer to the front. And then we stop at this booth. It's kind of on the side of the center of this, on the out, because there's sort of two tiers. And it was like, cool, this is fine. This is a very nice booth. It's cool. And I see on the booth, right in the middle, there is a plaque, a very small plaque, very, like a name tag essentially. And I sat down, and then I looked, directly at it, right? I noticed it right away. I remember. I noticed it, and I looked at it, and it said Oscar Steakhouse, and then below that said Robert De Niro and Sharon Stone. I was so excited. The thing is that you can request the tables, and honestly, there's many very famous tables in movie history that I would have loved to sit at. There's a very famous scene in the movie Heat with Robert De Niro and Al Pacino, and I think it's Angie's or Christie's or whatever. It's a restaurant that's no longer around that was very famous. That is where De Niro and Al Pacino sat in their very famous scene. There's also a scene, I believe, in a diner. We also sat at that scene. We also sat at the table too. Oh my God, I've gotten lucky twice. Sorry guys, it's not, I'm just remembering this. There's also a scene in the movie Secretariat where it's shot there. So it's not the real people, but it was shot there in this cool, it was shot in this really cool little diner right across from Churchill Downs. And that's where John Malkovich and Diane Lane sat in the movie Secretariat. And that one I have to give a shout out to my dad, because he was actually the first one to sit down in the diner, because maybe my mom were shopping for something. And my dad sat down, didn't tell me what it was. And as I was looking down at the table, I saw it said this was in the movie Secretariat. And I lost my shit because I thought that was cool. But this one of the most iconic parts of the film, where it was shot on, a lot of the movie was shot on location. But if you go back and watch the movie Casino, there is a scene where Robert De Niro and Sharon Stone, after he gets his daughter back and they go out to dinner, and he's kind of confronting her about the money that she spent, and they're sitting in a booth, and right away you could see that is exactly the booth that we were actually sitting at. So it takes a lot. I'm not going to lie, guys. It takes a lot to really impress me, and especially for things in Las Vegas, because it's been there, done that, no big deal, whatever. But the fact that this was all by chance, that we were able to sit at the casino table, I was already over the moon. I was taking pictures. I was legitimately so excited, because this is the thing, I'd never been there before. I have no idea where that seat was. And I knew they shot the movie there, and they sat us at the table, and I was so excited. There's nothing, and this is the thing, is that you can go to Golden Steer, and you'll sit at a booth, and almost all the booths have names. Like they'll have, Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., Elvis. Those are kind of like the big ones you'd want. But then they also have like Joey Bishop and Peter Lawford, and they do have a couple. They have like Marilyn Monroe, which is a cool one. But every time you sit at a booth, there's like a name. But there's only one booth, and you were able to sit in it. I was so excited. So a huge thank you to Oscars for actually, for my mom's birthday to be sitting there. It meant nothing to my mom. She didn't care. But to me, it was honestly and my dad thought it was cool too, was the coolest thing ever. And also a nice touch, getting back to the restaurant part of it, is that it was my mom's birthday, and they actually had a card waiting on the table to say happy birthday, and it was signed by all the members of the restaurant, or at least the higher tier members of the restaurant, which was a really nice touch. And it's really, really nice. And those little details is what really makes Vegas awesome, is those little hospitality details, and that's why I love it. Oh, it was awesome. So, beautiful booth. Then they end up, getting our drinks. My mom ended up getting a good cocktail. I'll actually have to pull up the menu, guys, so I can actually tell you guys what we had. But first of all, our waitress was fantastic. She was very charismatic. And my dad always does this thing where he'll ask, like, hey, like, what would you recommend? Or what do you think is good? Which is like, I know like a lot of people ask that question. But when my dad asked that question, it is sometimes like the hardest question to answer, because if you don't give the correct answer, it's just like down a rabbit hole. But she was able to take the question, and then she answered it wonderfully by explaining, well, we have these really great meatballs, and they're sort of this size, and that was a really good explanation. Then she told us about these pork belly, which was really, really awesome, which we actually ended up getting, and kind of went into another app that she talked about. I think it was ravioli, and she was fantastic. She was so attentive, and what I really enjoyed about Oscars, which is very rare, especially for restaurants in Las Vegas, especially fine dining ones, especially the ones that are super popular or famous, is that they didn't rush you. I think that was the nicest thing about the restaurant, was that you never felt like you were getting rushed. Like they never said, hey, we need to take the entire order right now at the beginning of the meal. So much of it was cool. Like, we'll get you started with these, and then we'll go into this, and then we can get into the entree, and then it was fine. And it never felt like we were being rushed out of the restaurant, which I really, really appreciate. And sometimes people don't, understand how big that is, but to me, it was amazing. So let's get into what we had. So I ended up getting an old fashioned. That was at the bar before. My mom ended up getting She got a cocktail. Here we go. So lots of classic cocktails, lots of gin and vodka cocktails, lots of gin cocktails, essentially. So the reason being is that Oscar Goodman used to drink a very famous martini with Bombay Sapphire. So if you want to have his cocktail, it's on there. But my mom ended up getting, let's see here. She got, Perfect Gin. His owner, Goodman's Legacy, Mavericks Downtown, Ranchan. My mom got the Jungle Bird, which is light rum, Campari, pineapple, and fresh lime. And it was quite tasty. Very, very delicious. It was good. My mom loved it. So I ended up like midway through the dinner, I ended up getting a Vesper Martini. It was great. And they usually always are, because it's just alcohol, and I can feel like when I'm drinking it and I blow out that I can definitely light a fire with whatever I'm drinking, because it is a lot of alcohol. But going back to what we got. So my dad doesn't eat a lot, but he does like things very specific. And it's always fun when you find something that he really wants to eat. So we ended up getting two appetizers. We ended up getting the Moose's glazed pork belly, which was quite good. It came in 3 pieces. There were 3 of us, so that definitely worked out. And for those of you not aware of pork belly is basically just a really fatty bacon, very, very thickly cut. But, you eat it with a fork and knife. It's super delicious. Love the pork belly. It was a great option. And then the other thing we ended up getting was the no-nose. I thought it was Nona, like Italian grandma. Nope, it was No Noses Mob Meatballs. and they come with two. They're very well sized. They're basically, they're bigger than a golf ball, smaller than a baseball. So a little smaller than a baseball. Two meatballs, which were delicious. I love meatballs, especially made this way. They're just fantastic. The sauce and the juice, it's so good. So no noses, mom meatballs, absolutely fantastic. We had both of those very well spaced out. It was good. So we had those together. And then I was kind of figuring out, like, what should we do, a salad for my dad to have, and then we can share a steak. Because I really didn't know what my dad, I knew some things what my dad was going to eat because he's a very small eater. So we ended up getting the Caesar salad. They did have a wedge. I love wedge salads, but Caesar salads are a little bit easier to share. And it was very good. Lots and lots of dressing, which I was totally fine with. Mixed in, delicious. We had that. But what was nice about it was that we ordered the appetizer, and then the waitress came over and she said, would you like anything else? I said, I think we're going to get the Caesar salad. And then she's like, okay, cool. And then walked away, which meant cool, like that's coming in. Actually, I think we actually ordered all of it. So yeah, we ordered the Caesar salad, and then we ended up ordering not the prime rib. We ended up getting not the porterhouse. We got the Oscars 24-ounce bone-in ribeye, which actually came out to $75, which honestly is very normal price for a ribeye. It's important to note this was 24 ounces. It's a very large ribeye. That feeds two people. I don't care who you are. A 24-ounce ribeye feeds two people. And this was $75. So it's actually not terrible, especially when you're going into it. This is also another thing I want everybody to kind of keep aware in your brain. Did we spend a lot? Where were we on budget-wise? Everybody has a different budget, obviously. But what I would recommend, the average person spends about $125 per person at a steakhouse. That's pretty normal. So between $120, $130 per person. So if it's two people for $125, that is a $250 meal for two people. There were three of us, so honestly, you're looking at close to $375 if you're going to be having that many people ordering a bunch of food. So that wasn't what it cost, by the way. It was less than us because we didn't get all that food. But we got the 24-ounce bone-in ribeye, medium, cooked perfectly. They slice it up for you. They will ask you, do you want us to cut it for you? You could say yes. We said yes. We took that. My dad ended up getting, which is his absolute favorite. This is his kryptonite. My dad loves bone marrow. Some people love it. Some people hate it. I do not like bone marrow. My dad loves bone marrow. So we ended up getting bone marrow, $16 as sort of an accompaniment. That's a side, essentially. You can ask how many come. They say it's usually between 2 and 3. Depends how big the bones are. We ended up getting 3. So my dad was able to eat all that, and he was very excited. It comes with all the stuff, the crostini, the thing themselves, the little small spoon, all the good stuff. So he got the bone marrow. We ended up getting a side of mac and cheese. That was the side that we ended up with, but very good sides on the menu. They have mashed potatoes, baked potato, cream spinach, Brussels sprouts, mac and cheese, lobster mac, thick cut fries, jumbo asparagus, mushrooms, cream corn, and one other thing I can't pronounce. But really good sides menu. I think it's very, very approachable. I love mashed potatoes, but honestly, I was like, that's kind of a lot of food. We had 2 appetizers, a salad, and the steak itself. I think we were totally fine with the mac and cheese. So that's what we got. And then the food came. But overall, there was no music, which I thought was interesting. It was a very, bustling bar, which was quite nice. There was a very big party next to us. But the service itself was so good. This is where you really have to sort of commend places that are old school, that they have a lot to live up to. I mean, they have to be able to provide this great experience. And I thought they did such a good job, executing every single part of the interaction. It felt old school Vegas. It never felt tacky. Everything felt like it was supposed to feel. And I really had fun at Oscars. So then the food came, and the steak was very good. I thought the steak was fine. Maybe just needed to have like more sauces, so maybe we should have ordered a sauce to go with it. But this is the thing about like steakhouses is that so much of it is the experience you're having around the actual steak itself. Yes, a lot of the foodies will say, well, it depends on the food. Yeah, but you know what? Sometimes it depends on the company that you're with, and that's what makes a great restaurant experience. And honestly, sitting in the booth where Robert De Niro and Sharon Stone sat was pretty awesome to me. But the steak was just fine. Mac and cheese, delicious. My dad loved the bone marrow. He ate all of it, every single inch. I ate all of the appetizers, obviously, because I thought they were unbelievable. But I really, really enjoyed it. It was so tasty. My favorite thing that I had was probably the meatballs. I love a nice, like, Italian saucy meatball. Ooh, they taste so good. But no, the conversation was good. Lots of pictures were taken. The owner of the plaza was there, or vice president, one of the two. Can't remember what she does, but he was there, so that was cool. Saw him. We were there for quite a while. Like it was 6:15. I want to say we got done about 8 o'clock, a little over 8 o'clock, which was fine. But had that really good service all around, and then. They even told us this before the dinner even started, was that they had a little dessert for my mom at the end of the evening that had happy birthday on it. Make sure you go check out our Instagram page where we have some pictures up on consciousconfidential_LV of the experience over at Oscars. And you can see the pictures that we took. I'll make a reel like later in the week, but definitely go check that out just so you can, see what I ended up eating. It's kind of fun to look at it while I'm talking about it. But for the desserts, it was actually like this. What was it? It wasn't a chocolate cake. It wasn't a tower. It was like this 3-layer. I don't want to. Is it tiramisu? I don't even think it's a tiramisu. It was just like this really cool little cake, and it had a little, what do you call it? A little candle on it. It was absolutely fabulous. Everything that we wanted. It was so light and fluffy. Oh my God, it was so good. But they do have chocolate cake. They have carrot cake, New York style cheesecake, chocolate chip cookie, creme brulee. All these ice cream sundae, nice. All these desserts are $15, which is nice. So kind of going into the prices, I would say this is actually a very doable steakhouse. Obviously, they have some things on the menu that are quite pricey, but they do have prime rib, which is actually very hard to find a steakhouse that serves prime rib anywhere on the strip. It's, like I said, very rare. So this place does theirs for $64. 16 ounces, that's not bad. They have a filet mignon for $67. They have a Kansas City strip steak for $81 at 18 ounces. And they also have a Bobby G's, a 14-ounce New York strips for $69. I would eat that. That's what I would probably get. And they get a rib cap for $71, which that's actually not too shabby. So yeah, so overall, really great experience at the at Oscar's Steakhouse. Really great. I would honestly say this is probably one of my top 5 restaurant experiences or steakhouse experience I've had in Las Vegas, and I feel pretty strongly about that. I really, really enjoyed it, and I think, and the bill was like under $300, which I would say is not too bad. Obviously, there were 3 people, obviously, so when there's 3 people, you're thinking like this is gonna be like $375. That's actually kind of a win as long as it's under $300. So I would say there are obviously things on this menu that can definitely break the bank, but overall, I thought this was a really fantastic time at Oscars. So really, really great, and thank you so much for having us, Oscar. Having us, I booked the reservation, we paid for it, so it's not like they invited us, but I really enjoyed it, and hopefully you guys do too. And that is downtown on Fremont Street. I actually think that Oscars is better than Barry's. It could be recency bias. Barry's is very good. I have a problem with their sides. And not to hang them over their sides, but I'm just saying, like, that's a thing. But it's also very expensive to eat at Barry's. I think Barry's is fine in terms of atmosphere. No view. You don't really see that many. Like, it's very dark in there, so you don't get to see lots of like those type of people. But meaning like celebrities and stuff. And it's, although a lot of celebrities do eat at Barry's. Who eats at Barry's? Devontae Adams eats at Barry's, the owner of the Raiders, not Al Davis, Mark Davis eats there quite a bit. So it's very popular in town. It's become like kind of one of those things. But yeah, I think Oscars might be better than Barry's. And I was going into it thinking it was going to be cheesy, and it was Was not that cheesy. Other things from the weekend. So we ended up watching the Super Bowl at the Park MGM High Limit Bar. That is a secret that hopefully you guys forget by the time the next Super Bowl rolls around. Classic Super Bowl Sunday where I had to actually wake up, walk to a bunch of different locations, see what they got going on. And we were able to sit at the High Limit Bar and watch the game. They had the sound on. They're very nice. When you do that, guys, it is not free, but it typically ends up being a little bit cheaper than having to go and pay, base price for any place you're going to. And it was a smaller group of ours. So, 4 to 6 people, and we were able to watch the game. It was fantastic. Other things over the weekend. Oh, my brother actually ended up coming in with his family. So it was my brother, his wife, and then my 2 nieces who really, really enjoy the Formula One arcade experience, which they didn't do it last time they came because they were here for F1, but there was after 7 o'clock, so they weren't able to do it, and they really, really loved it. I would say it's definitely for the F1 diehards. I think would really enjoy it, and again, it's really great for dates. But for 3 people, for five races each, 3 people, it ends up coming around $148. So it is not cheap whatsoever, but for 3 people, it's not too bad. And again, kids can do it because they have simpler difficulty levels for that as well. We ended up staying at the New York, which is going to prompt me to do another episode on that particular property because I think the New York might be the most underrated hotel on the Las Vegas Strip. It's so fantastic. It's always got a great energy to it, regardless of the event in town, and it is a really fun time. I also went to the Backstreet Boys, where I will save that for another day. Who knows when? But that was a great experience. Went to Wakuda for a couple drinks, and then we went to the show as well. So it was awesome. It was so cool. But overall, that was Super Bowl weekend. Had a great time. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this review of Oscar's Steakhouse. Hopefully you guys stay tuned with us on our next episode, which we'll probably be reviewing something or doing a deep dive into a hotel that I just stayed at, like I just said. So make sure you stay tuned. Make sure you check out us on all of our socials. At Keys to Vegas is getting going again on TikTok. And then make sure you check us out on Instagram at Concerts Confidential _LV. Or my personal Instagram, which is Brian_Ortega26. And reach out to me with any questions you may have about your upcoming trip to Las Vegas. And hopefully I'll be able to answer those for you as well. So make sure if you see me out in town, come out and say hello. But remember, keep it confidential.